Welcome to our posts. Today. We will see stories of r/TrueOffMyChest. The twin girls I'm raising called me daddy today. I got married to a woman who at the time had twin girls and they were young. 5 at the time. It's been 5 years, and today as I took them to the mall to get some new stuff they'd been asking for, we ran past a few of their friends and they introduced me as dad. I am the happiest man alive and can't be convinced otherwise. It was all I could do to hold back the tears because I was so overwhelmed. I immediately faked having to go number 1 and went to the bathroom and wept uncontrollably in a stall as quietly as I could. I hope any men who are step-parents that deserve this beautiful sentiment to experience it, as it's been the best day of my life. Needless to say, I may have spent a few hundred more than I'd bargained for today, because no way was I going to say no to anything. Hell, they could have gotten me to buy a car if they'd asked. That's how great I felt. Anyways, thanks to any who read this, and I hope you've a great evening, morning. I'm settling into bed with my book and a cup of tea. Night, all. Edit. Thank you all for the amazing feedback. I really love this community and all of you for really making me see there is still good in this world. I hope you all have a great day today, as you all have made my week. Next story. My wife may have been too bold at the beach. Since my wife Abby, 26F, and I, 28M, started dating, I have noticed that she is sometimes mistreated and even pushed around by other, mainly older women. She is a petite, friendly blonde, and that seems to push the buttons of some resentful people. And that's why I was incredibly proud of Abby for something she did on our honeymoon that was probably petty. We went to a clothing-optional beach near our resort, just for fun and to check it out. We had never been. We did not strip out of our swimsuits, but the beach was beautiful and the vibe was very chill. At one point we walked to a secluded part of the beach where Abby posed for me to take some fun photos by a cave, just very ordinary vacation photos. While we were doing this, a woman approached us, probably mid-50s, and said very rudely that cameras are very frowned upon at clothing-optional beaches, and that we were clueless not to know that. She then said, "This is a peaceful beach. Nobody wants to see her flaunting her butt anyway." She then returned to her blanket with her husband. They were both clothed as well. We were completely shocked, but didn't say anything. We were sort of frozen in the moment and couldn't believe this woman's attitude. Abby and I walked back to our area and asked me to scoop up our stuff so we could move. I didn't know what she had in mind. But she moved us to an area directly in front of this woman and her husband, probably 15 feet away. And then she did it. She stood up, with her back to this couple, took off her bikini top, and then her bottom, and stretched, and turned around to face them. She went up to the woman and said, "No cameras, please," and walked back and laid on our blanket, in full view of them. They left after 5 minutes, literally went to their car. I still can't believe it. I know it was a bit much, but I was so proud of her in that moment. Honest opinions, was this move over the top? Next story. My husband died, and I have to pretend that he was a great man who loved me. My husband passed away 3 months ago. I was relieved of that. He abused me financially, mentally, and even physically. When I got pregnant, he convinced me to quit my job, saying that he would take care of me. I could never buy anything again without asking his permission. I couldn't even buy a cream without asking his permission, and he decided if I could or not. Even months ago that I had a little money of my own, I had to ask him for permission to buy something. What was mine was theirs, and theirs was theirs. But I stayed there because I still loved him, and I didn't have a place to go. I had too low self-esteem and let myself be stepped on. When I stopped loving him, he had already had his first affair. He made me believe that I was to blame for the affair because I didn't wanted to have sex months after my birth that left me torn and I had to receive stitches. I was already planning my exit and saving money little by little, while I was working selling things from home since he wouldn't let me work outside because he was very jealous. I wanted to pay for a lawyer. He was having another affair with a friend of his, which luckily kept him busier, and I didn't care anymore that he didn't pay attention to me. I wanted him to stay as far away as possible. I knew that man and he knew me. I could have made a big fuss, but I didn't. I kept quiet, planning my way out while he and that man slept together in secret. I only felt disgusted by my husband, nothing more. But my husband died in a way I never would have expected. He is now a martyr. When someone dies, all the sins of that person disappear. Because that's what even my family thinks. Those who knew about his affair and how he manipulated me are now talking about how good man he was, and we shouldn't insult someone who's dead. Everyone around me talks about how beautiful our relationship was. His family talks about what a great man he was, and how always he focused on giving everything to me and our kid. His affair partner hugged me at the funeral, saying that my husband loved me. His friends told me what a great person he was. Everyone talks about how good but he was and how he is now an angel in heaven. And I have to pretend to be sad. The day he died, I cried a lot, but not out of sadness. I cried with relief, and I felt free. It would have taken me too many years to save to pay for lawyers with my little store without him realizing that I was keeping money in secret. He would have kept everything. He would have made my life a hell, and I know it because he had told me so every time I stood for myself. But now I have the house, I have everything. I have the monthly money for being a widow. I have my children totally with me. I have started the psychologist. Everyone thinks that I do it to cope with my grief, but no, it is to overcome the abuse I suffered from him. It was really hard to pretend being sad in the funeral, but I did it for my child. I did it because now everything is over and I'm free. If I made a fuss, my ex-mill would have done something so that I wouldn't keep anything. They were just like him. But now I'm just a sad widow who needs help in their eyes. A silly widow who didn't know anything. But that's helping me to be free and have what I deserve. Sorry for the bad English. I use the traductor for many parts. Edit. We are not from an Islamic country, and here same-sex couples can live and marry freely. He just cheated on me with a man like he cheated on me with a woman. I guess he was bisexual. Next story. My oldest son attacked my younger son and his girlfriend. I'm overwhelmed with guilt and need advice on a recent family crisis. My younger son, 21, discovered that my middle son, 25, had been having an affair with his girlfriend, 22, who is now pregnant. The betrayal was devastating for him. My husband and I called a family meeting to address the situation with just my middle son, my younger son, and us. We wanted to express our anger toward my middle son, but also make it clear that we still wanted to be involved in the grandchild's life. Unexpectedly, my younger son brought his older brother, 29, along. My older son was recently released from jail. He is a large man, 6'3", with a troubled past involving steroid abuse and frequent fights. He's a masochist with a volatile temper. Although we knew about his temper, we couldn't have anticipated how out of control he would become. When they arrived, my older son immediately began attacking my middle son. Despite our attempts to stop him, he was too powerful and relentless. The attack was brutal. My middle son ended up with a broken arm, multiple bruised ribs, and a concussion. My younger son's girlfriend was also struck in the stomach and had to be rushed to the hospital to ensure the baby's safety. During the assault, my older son expressed his anger towards us, calling us losers for how we handled the situation. His outburst was shocking and escalated the violence. Now he's back in jail, and my younger son has cut off contact with us. I feel heartbroken and deeply responsible for how the situation spiraled out of control despite our attempts to intervene. I really need advice because I'm lost on what to do. Next story. Going to end a friendship because I have strong sexual urges for her. Met a girl on Tinder. We went on 4 long dates and were into each other. However, while she thought I was cute, my feelings seemed to going more romantic. She confessed she didn't have those feelings but said, since we share so many interests, if we could be friends. I said I can give it a shot, and surprisingly, I got over her romantically. Then a year later, she got a FWB and I got jealous of the sex. Keep in mind, she'd been on many dates with other guys and made out with them, and I didn't care at all. But hearing her have sex with someone, when we both talked about how attractive we were and how sex might be in the picture in the future, got me angry. I'm not entitled to sex with her. And frankly, I don't want it since it's clear she's not interested in a FWB with me. I tried ignoring how I feel but can't. I get jealous and irritated about what I want versus what I have in this friendship, so I'll explain why I'm breaking it off. Update: she wasn't as understanding as I hoped. I felt vulnerable laying out my feelings. She was mad, but doesn't want to stop being friends. I wish it wasn't Sunday because I need a drink. Next story. For the last year, I've put a little pee on my husband's towel each night. My husband is uncut. Because of this, it seems he must carry around a little sample with him after he pees, dripple that's collected in the extra skin. It stays there until it gets dislodged. I guess when he's wearing clothes, it would just rub off on his knickers. But he sleeps naked, so at night, if he gets up to pee, he carries a little sample back to bed with him, which then inevitably gets delivered to whichever part of my body he rubs up on. I've told him this a million times. He just thinks it's funny. It is kind of funny. We are gross like that. But he still never makes any effort to avoid it. I've told him he could just take a moment to wipe it on some toilet paper, but he refuses. I guess his willy might drop off. I really don't know. So for the last year, whenever I need to pee at nighttime, instead of using toilet paper to wipe, I use his bath towel. Like I said, I'm gross. He changes his towel every other day, but he showers twice a day, so it brings me a little joy. I will never tell him. I hope he never finds out. I don't even think it's funny, but it does make me feel like we are even. Next story. Seeing a picture of me as a 3/4-year-old child made me so angry. I was at a family gathering recently, and there were tons of photos of all the family. It was great to reminisce and see everyone, but one particular photo made me so angry that I can't stop thinking about. Angry because I know what was to come. I look so happy in that photograph. The way a child should be, obviously. Just my brother and I messing around in my grandparents' yard. That child didn't know that for 10+ years he was going to live in a home where he was viciously beaten by the same brother in that photo, tortured for sport and left emotionally damaged, where his parents ignored his pleas for help and safety. Boys will be boys, just walk away from him, stand up for yourself. What about when he brings friends over to take turns hurting me for fun? How do I walk away from older boys in a locked room? Or when he distracted my parents at the lake so his friend could hold my head underwater. That little boy didn't know he was going to be socially isolated and unable to form human connections until he had been in therapy for years. He was just excited to climb a damn tree. Edit. Sucks that so many of you can relate to this post. But I hope you're all healing in whatever way works best for you. The best revenge you can get is to work on living a happy life now instead of mourning the one you lost. Next story. I used to be a groupie for a crappy band until the worst night of my life. When I was 14, I dated an older guy 25 who was an addict. I was stupid and thought we were in love. He was in a band, and they were all 18, 27, and me and my best friend 14 and 15 would get passed around, and we were kinda like Rotus groupies. My boyfriend was the guitarist, and one night at a gig he was shooting up heroin backstage. It was kind of like a club venue, so there was people already there waiting for their set to start. He managed to odd backstage, and I was freaking out, but luckily I was always anxious because everyone in the band / hung around used some kind of opioids at some point, so I always had Narcan in my purse, so I was able to give him the nasal spray Narcan to bring him back. I didn't know at the time that when people get Narcan they can get violent, so he started trying to beat my butt and yelling at me for ruining his high. So the singer had to jump in and get him to stop and ended up punching him so hard he went out cold again. In the meantime, my best friend was smoking with the drummer in the bathroom, and it set off all the smoke alarms in the club, and it set off the sprinkler system, causing everyone to have to evacuate. So I ended up having to try and help the singer and bassist pack all the instruments and stuff up into the van, while the drummer and other guitarists stayed with my boyfriend, and my best friend argued with the club manager about paying damages, and then we all had to haul the guitarist's butt to the earth. This whole time my parents didn't know where me and my friend were, and also I was completely stoned and borderline tweaked. When we were at the only one of us could go with him, so they sent me to go because I was dating him, but I looked very underage, so it was a terrible idea, but I insisted to the hospital staff I was 18. By the time he was sober and actually okay again, he ended up blaming me for his odd and said I stressed him out too much, and he just yelled at me. After that night, I never spoke to him again. But I recently found out that he died of an odd, and his bandmates reached out to me because while going through his things found a diary he had kept at the time talking about how he used the odd that night as an excuse to dump me and get me to leave him because he felt like he was ruining me and thought I deserved better. So yeah, I've been an emotional wreck ever since. But when I did stop talking to him, I got sober and got my crap together in almost all aspects of my life, so I guess him leaving me was him looking out for me in a way. I don't know. It's been heavy on my soul since I found out. BTW, they weren't famous or anything, they were locally known, if that makes sense, but in no way famous. Next story. I hate my brother. I hate my family for blaming my girlfriend for something that isn't her fault. It's not right, but we are being blamed for something that isn't our fault. I just need to get this out somewhere because the situation with my family is too much. I don't know how much more vitriol my girlfriend can take, and it's not fair. I've been dating my girlfriend for 8 months. My mom and dad had a party for their 30th anniversary. There is a pool in their garden. My 2-year-old nephew fell in the pool. My girlfriend was the one who noticed and got him out. She did CPR until the ambulance took him to the A&E. This was the worst day of my life. My family blames my girlfriend and me to a lesser extent for letting my nephew fall in the pool. He isn't ours, it isn't our pool, and no one asked us to mind him or the other children. My brother and sister-in-law and at least 50 other adults were in the garden. Both the mothers and fathers of all the children as well as their own grandparents were there in the garden. The other kids were playing in the pool. My girlfriend was the only one who noticed my nephew in the water. My brother and sister-in-law didn't. Neither did my parents. Neither did anyone else whose grandchildren were playing in the water. My brother told my girlfriend he would take her to court if he could. I thought this was said in the heat of the moment, but it's been 2 weeks, and he hasn't said anything to take it back. He blames her. My sister-in-law said more than once that she hates my girlfriend. My mom and dad are disappointed in my girlfriend. If anyone in my family feels differently, they haven't said anything to me or spoken up about it. Everyone is either blaming us or staying silent. I'm most angry at my parents and my other siblings. I could understand that my brother and my sister-in-law aren't in their right minds because it's still unknown if my nephew will fully recover. But my other siblings said that my brother has a point when he blamed my girlfriend. My aunt and uncle asked if I have reconsidered my relationship. My girlfriend is distraught about what happened, and being blamed is not helping the situation. I've been telling her she isn't to blame and that I'll keep my family away, but I don't know if it's helping. I want to do everything I can to show her that I love her. If I say anything to defend her or myself to my family, it falls on deaf ears. My family is angry at me too. I'm not even talking to my family right now, and I don't know if I ever will again. We are the only 2 people at the party who don't have children or grandchildren, but we are getting all the blame. Next story. My stepson kicked me out, and now he wants a handout. Throwaway. I 37M met my late wife, R52F, when she passed back when I was 26 and she was 45. Our relationship was always looked at with disgust because of the age difference or because people thought it was a sham. I was an immigrant and she was a citizen. R had a son, P, from her first marriage. P was 18 when I started dating R. I never had a good relationship with P, but I tolerated him for R whenever he came around. On my 29th birthday, R and I got married and lived in her house. 4 years ago, R passed away in a tragic accident. I was shattered from the loss and barely got through her funeral. But after P found out that R had given him the house, he wanted me out. I knew about R's will and wasn't really interested in the house. But I was not in the mental state where I could look for other accommodations. I asked P to let me stay for just 2 more weeks, but he wouldn't allow it. He wanted the house for himself and his pregnant girlfriend. He also claimed that I had stolen his inheritance because R only left him the house and I got the money and investments. He threw my belongings out like it was trash. It was trash for anyone, but for me, it was my memory of R. I didn't have any contact with him ever since. But last week was R's birthday, and I went to her grave as I do every year since her passing. I saw P there. I initially didn't say anything, but he greeted me and asked how I was to start some small talk. I kept my responses short and civil. As I was leaving, he asked me to join him for dinner. I refused, but then he asked for my contact. I gave it to him without thinking much about it. A few days ago, he calls me to ask if I was interested in buying the house from him. He wanted the money for his business venture. I suggested him to approach a bank as I couldn't help him. Then he reveals that he already has a loan on the house and wants the money to pay off the loan. He also wants me to continue to let him live in the house after the transaction because, as per him, I should ensure that my grandson, his son, has a roof over his head, as that is what R would have wanted. At that moment, I just wanted to punch him through the phone. All the painful memories of R came rushing back. The sight of the little trinkets we collected together shattered to pieces was so clearly visible. I have tried to restrain myself and not respond to his craziness, but needed an outlet, so writing this post. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure like, comment, share, and subscribe the channel R posts.